Welcome to Life of Hair. My name's James Atkinson. Now, in this week's episode, I've had a special request to cut a haircut that a lot of you are going to absolutely dread the return of. It is the Rachel haircut. This particular version of this haircut is the circa 2000s-ish version of it, where it was a bit softer and it was a bit more playful and her hair was a bit longer. So I'm going to do this week, and then next week I'm going to do the full-blown 90s throwback version of the Rachel haircut. Very, very heavy, kind of mushroomy shape that she had back then. And obviously that haircut has been iconic. It's gone massively out of fashion in recent years, but the 90s is here. It is super fashionable. We're seeing those massive pieces of colour in the front from the Spice Girls era, and then I'm also seeing really, really heavily highlighted hair. Now, a lot of you are going to be quaking in your boots at the idea of returning to what was a period of time that you wish you'd forgotten all about. But remember, guys, this is always an opportunity to adapt and change those styles and recreate them and redefine them. Think about chefs. They take food and refine it, especially fine dining chefs. This is exactly that. So the first one I'm going to show you, I'm sure you'll all probably like. The second one you may not be so keen on, but I think it's good to know how to do those haircuts anyway. So let's get on with the tutorial of this particular haircut. Now, I'm going to start this haircut with a really simple pre-section. I'm going to take a center parting to just behind the highest point of the head here, and then I'm going to take two sections down to the back of the ear to subdivide the front from the back. So I'll do that quick. So you can see that's coming down to the back of the ear. I've done exactly the same thing on the opposite side. I know you can't see that from there, but take my word for it. I've got that whole back section from the highest point of the head to the back of the ear, pre-sectioned away, so that we can just work independently with this front, because the Rachel haircut really was all about what was going on in the front. It was that lovely kind of shaping that went around the face that was very complementary to Rachel's face shape. Now, it started from some of the reference pictures that I've seen online, are much more up by her chin area initially. So that's where we're going to put our guide section in. So if we take a very small triangle of hair, clip that back out of the way. Now, do make sure that this section is super small, because if you make it too big, it will very much interfere with the haircut at the front, because you'll have this kind of weighty corner at the shortest point of your haircut, and obviously you don't want that. So once we've got this small triangle of hair at the front, we're going to decide where we're going to cut it to, and I think you'll remember that we agreed we're probably going to cut it towards the chin area somewhere for the shortest point. So once you've measured down to the chin, we're going to elevate the section straight out from the head, like thus. And here's a really important thing. This is why you should cut this section from the front, because you need your client's head to be dead square. So we're going to elevate the section straight up. We can cut it like this, or we can come to the side and we can pull it straight out that way. Now, I recommend you cut it straight from the front, because not only then can you see that you're pulling it straight out from the head shape, which is really, really, really important, but also you can manage your elevation, I think, better. You can see where the hair's coming from the head better from the front. Just a personal opinion. So we're going to cut a square line to get this going, and we can see that that has created this little fringy piece at the front. Now, that is the guide for the entire haircut now. Now, not only am I going to show you how to cut Rachel's haircut, but I'm going to show you how to cut it nice and fast as well, because I think long graduation, which is the technical term for this haircut, one of those haircuts that some hairdressers, especially in their early careers, find quite difficult. So what I'm going to get you to do is subdivide the side into two, comb it down out of the way, comb up, and where we're going to subdivide that section is at the middle of the recession. We're going to elevate this section straight up to the sky, and then we will be able to see in here. Can we see inside here is a guide? That is the guide for this entire haircut. Now that is super important, because what we're going to do now is we're going to cut with the heel of our scissor. So the two things to remember are, make sure that your guide is at the appropriate length before you start cutting the hair, and that when you've got this section subdivided halfway through the parietal ridge area or the recession line, we're going to elevate the hair straight up, and then we will have a guide. So I can clearly see my guide there, and I'll just zoom in on that so that you can see it too. I've got my over direction, just check that that's right, into the center there, and then I'm going to use the heel of my scissor to work away the hair. And I'm aiming not to really cut an enormous amount of hair off here, just a little bit, okay? So we can see now that that hair goes from long to short, and that is why it's graduation, because we're cutting from long here to short there. Now we'll see straight away we've got the makings of Rachel's haircut. Okay, then what we're going to do is pick up the underneath section. We're going to comb that straight up from the head, and we're going to push it into the center. And from that point, we're going to do exactly what we did previously. So once we've pushed all the hair into the center, we're going to do exactly as we did before, but we can let this hair fall away, because really this hair is too short to be part of the hair we're about to cut. I can clearly see a guide from my previous section within there, and as long as I can clearly see a guide from my previous section, then that's okay. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're using the heel of the scissor to gently carve away a short to long line. So we've now got like a layered shape that is in the shape of Rachel's haircut. If we would like a little bit more adding to it, then we can freehand it in, but I like this shape that I've created. I always leave it. Some people like to extend it from this point and take it back a bit more diagonally, but I always feel that, especially with my clients, this might be different for yours, that they like to feel like they've still got the hair that lives in the front of their shoulders, and that is why we've sectioned off, for my instance, from the top of the head to the back of the ear, so that it's that hair that they sit forward, they keep seeing, haven't cut the corner off, as some people would describe it. So to cut this left-hand side, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to split it into two. We're going to stay for right-handers on the right-hand side. And the pure reason for this is because it's easier to cut like this from short to long than it would be to come from this side and attempt to aim down here. It's very difficult. I mean, I don't think it's actually possible necessarily. I'm sure some people would disagree with me, but personally, I don't think that's a great idea. So again, same thing. We're going to make sure that we're over directing to the center. So this time I'm pulling the hair towards me, lifting the hair straight out from the head. I've got a clear guide here from that very front triangle that I took. I'm double checking that my over direction's in the center. You can use the mirror as well. And just using the heel of the scissor and very, very small action. I'm never ever closing my scissors when I do this. And I'm just working my way up to the top. And again, I know it's gone right because I've got a long piece of hair here, 4 or 5 inches in length. And then I've got a 2.5, 3 inch piece here. So that's how I know that that went to plan. And then I simply just pick up this section, scoop it up, pull it all towards me. I know some of that front will fall away at this point. Take it right up. I can see my guide in here, and I'm just going to scoop it out. There we go, exactly the same thing again. Double check my shape for balance. Now, I've done this in a center parting, and I know what some of you are going to say, well, not all my clients wear their hair in the center. You can do this on the side. You just need to do exactly what we just did in the designated parting of your client. So if they want it on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, you simply take that first triangle just out of their natural parting. So for instance, in this case, let's say it was a left-hand parting, we would take that parting in the beginning, and we would have taken a little triangle out of here, we'd have cut it to length, and we'd have done everything in an offset fashion. That would give us even shape around the front. One of the main things about doing it in the center though, is that when we move the parting, or if the parting's moved, the balance changes. So we'll be able to see now that this hair looks a lot shorter than this piece of hair, and that is because of the balance changes due to the side parting. So they're things that you need to discuss with your client in the consultation. Is she going to wear her hair in the center, or has she got a specific parting that she really prefers to wear hair in? If she says, I flip my hair left and right and messes around with it like that, cut it in the middle, guys. I would just, not specifically cater to both sides. I'd cut it in the middle, and I'd explain that if she pushes it one way, it will be off balance, but that's okay. If she pushes the other way, it'll be off balance, but that's okay. And if it falls in the center, it'll be perfect. Now, the back, I know that you're all going to be thinking, well, what we're going to do with the back. The back is super, super simple. So I've taken about 1 centimeter of hair from the front that I've already cut, and I've combed it into, so we've got exactly the same pre-section, but it's just slightly further forward. Then what I'm going to do is take a center profile section, which is straight down the center back, like this, like this. I'm going to push that hair neatly out the way. This hair is going to be neatly pushed out of the way, and I'm going to do exactly what I did in the front to blend in the front to the back. Now, don't get me wrong, if you want it more layered, when you find your guide from your previous haircut, you could just cut a square line, and that would create a more layered back for you, if that's what you wanted. So you could go from graduation to square layers at this point. But in this instance, I'm going to go with the theme of the same haircut that I did at the back, and there's very, very little for me to cut off in this instance, and that will keep the layers nice and long. I like long layers, so that's just my preference. I'm going to split that guide that I took straight down the center back, and I'm going to push the hair left, I'm going to push the hair right. So we end up with this kind of formation. The center of the parietal ridge to the center back, I'm going to take a section, and I'm going to push it into the middle. I'm going to elevate it straight up to the sky, just blending it in to that section. I then take all of that back section, that back right hand quadrant, so I've got all that hair, I'm going to push it into the center, and I'm going to make sure that there's nothing for me to take off. We're going to do exactly as we did on the previous left hand side. We're going to take a section that runs through the center of the parietal ridge, we're going to pick it up, and this time we're going to be pulling it towards us, which is super important. We check our over direction is in the center, and we cut a line that travels towards the ceiling. We can then scoop up that whole back quarter and just make sure that we've got no excess hair. And that is the back and the front blended together. And I'm going to blow dry this now, and then I'll come back and show you the results at the end. And any refining that I do, I'll show you before I give you the finished results. So we've blow dried the Rachel haircut, circa early 2000s version. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I will be doing the other Rachel haircut, the more sort of mushroomy, heavy version of the haircut. I'm not sure how relevant that one will be going forward. I think this is one that everyone's going to be after. Not a lot needs doing to this in terms of refinement. You know, I've just dried it nice and straight so that we can see the shape around the front here. and not done a whole lot, just run the irons over the edges. And you can see that the shape has really kind of come out, and it's nice and light, and there's kind of really not a whole lot you need to do to that. The only thing I might do to this to enhance it a little bit is just section off exactly as we did previously to the back of the ear, and then split that section into two, and then elevate that section straight up into the air, making sure that we've got kind of good over direction into the middle there. And I would just point cut into that hair to make sure that there's no weight, no heavy areas around this front. And that will be, just lighten that little front area a touch. So you can just see there's a slight difference between those two areas now. This is a little bit weightier, the line's a bit stronger, that will just soften up that line. So we'll repeat that process exactly the same on the opposite side. Take a section down to the back of the ear, split that section into two horizontally across the parietal ridge, elevate that hair straight up and keeping it over directed as we did previously from that point to the center. So we're keeping it in that over direction, and we're just using a deep point cutting technique just to make sure that we refine that hair a little bit should we need to. But in all honesty, there's not a whole lot that you need to do to this. It's a beautifully simple, easy to do technique that looks fantastic, and it does give you that nice, simple shaping around the face. And it's a haircut that you can execute in no time at all on the salon floor, so it's not one to be intimidated by. If you've enjoyed this episode, then do hit that thumbs up button. It really helps the videos so other people can enjoy them. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you again really, really soon for another episode of The Life of Hair.